Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the Mad Hatter. I'm logging back in, aka the Shadow Tamer. And this go around, I'm going to talk about the lovely topic of race, which everybody loves to talk about. So, I'm going to kind of parlay these 2 points, but I'm going to start with this main point. The main point I want to talk about is uh, recently, J.K. Rowling sent out a tweet. Her tweet was in response to a Daily Mail tweet, which labeled the attacker in a Quebec City mosque. It labeled the attacker as a lone wolf, and she responded to that um, by basically saying he is a terrorist, not a lone wolf. Now she's kind of wrong because he's a suspect actually. However, I think the point that she's making is if it was somebody of Muslim origin or Arab origin, they would not be labeling this person as a lone wolf. But I'm going to get into that later. So just a little bit of background based on the last video that I did. This is in response to an executive order that Trump signed. President Donald Trump of the United States, he signed an executive order which was banning immigrants from seven majority Muslim countries. Um, and so that led to a lot of legal issues in this country, and it led to protests and all kinds of different things. And so what happened as a result of that is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that, if America is going to block you guys, we're going to open up our borders to you to a certain extent. And so based on that, I'm assuming that this guy, the suspect in this Quebec City mosque massacre, I'm a suspect that this person was responding to Justin Trudeau. His name is again Alexander Bissonnette, and he is a suspect in the Quebec City mosque killing. So what I want to parlay into is there is this study by it's called a New America study, and the Washington Times, which is actually a very conservative paper, actually ran the story, which I'm pretty surprised that they did so. And they're actually one of the only ones I think talking about this and who kind of like brought this to light again. I mean, a lot of people know this, but this is actually kind of stunning that they actually ran this. So in that article, I'm going to read you the beginning of this article really quick. So the headline of this article is majority of fatal attacks on U.S. soil carried out by white supremacists, not terrorists, by Maggie Ybarra for the Washington Times. They actually interesting. I just noticed, but this story actually was written previously, but it's just now coming back up again. So it says in the 14 years since September 11th, terror attacks, nearly twice as many people have been killed in the United States by white supremacists and anti-government radicals than by Muslim jihadis, according to a new study. So this is a study back in 2015, but I think this study is still very pertinent to today. So since that time, there have been 48 people killed by Muslim extremists, and there have been 26 people killed by white supremacists. So before I get into those numbers, the problem with what we do now and how the government deals with terrorism is that it's not just in the media, but the government labels it as a lone actor mental health issue, just like that tweet I read you. Now, I don't think that Daily Mail is actually going out of their way to give in to the stereotype, but that's the problem is that it's this inherent bias that I think that we all have to a certain extent, and we got to take a step back and realize what we're doing, right? But think about this: like when a black or a brown person does it, if a Mexican, a black person, uh, somebody of Arab background, if it's anybody else, they label it as a cultural type of thing. It's like they're labeled immediately as savages, and this is a part of their culture. Like they consciously knew what they were going to do, right? I mean, think about Hillary's super predator remark, right? The other problem is that authorities are spending a lot of energy on Muslim threats, but not as much on white supremacy. So in the case of Dylan Roof, right, he leaked a lot of information out, and he could have really tipped off these agencies, but I guess because he wasn't a Muslim, they didn't pick up on this. Now, people will make the argument that The reason why you see more of these attacks from white supremacists is because the war on people of Muslim background is working. The war on terror is working. But if you actually compare the amount of money that we put into the war on terror versus a threat that's actually bigger in white supremacy, the amount of money we spend on Muslim terrorism or terrorism from Muslim origin is nowhere near. It's levels above what we spend on homegrown terrorism and white supremacy. So what this to bring it all together, what this really says is that we need to push the government to a certain extent. Not even to a certain extent. We need to push the government to change the label of terrorism, and we need to break free, free from this way of thinking that terrorism only means people from North African, Middle Eastern countries or people with that descent and that background. When terrorism happens all the time in this country, I mean, how can you say that? How can you not say that what Dylan Roof did wasn't terrorism? I mean, he used the Bible. He he was put very political. The Ku Klux is a political entity, but however, that doesn't link up with the definition. Now, I believe the definition of terrorism is using violence with a political ideology behind it. I just don't understand how white supremacy is not a political ideology, especially when it's linked to the church. So somebody explain that to me. So that's where I want to leave that. You guys, let me know what you think. Uh, yeah, shit's crazy. All right.